Hello, everyone. Welcome to Picking Bones. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, we're going to talk about some people who claim to be fighting human trafficking. So let's jump right into it. This is Eliza Bleu, and has recently really had her 5 minutes of fame. She has been on a number of big talk shows, including The Daily Wire. She was on Timcast. So she's gotten a lot of publicity lately, and she claims that she's a human trafficking survivor advocate. Honestly, I'm not going to waste any time on this girl. I just wanted to bring her up briefly. Anyone who goes in and listens to her story of what supposedly happened to her can very easily find that all of the details don't line up. Her timeline doesn't work. She's very clearly an incredibly dishonest person. And rather than digging into that, I'm just going to show you this clip where she kind of wrecked herself. And I think people realized very quickly, if they had been deceived by her a bit, they've realized, oh, she's actually the worst.
So I think that the community and the child, if the child so desires to have intercourse with an adult, the parents, caregivers, and anyone it's just what I just said.
This one's supposed to be the paragon, the protector of children. This whole thing is like a MAPS lecture at Berkeley. Help me out.
That would be up to if the child has desire and if the community also decides that the person that they're supposed to have intercourse with is not using force, fraud, coercion, manipulation. You know what? The 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old probably doesn't have the cognitive ability to have.
No, they don't.
So what she's saying in this clip from this podcast, this is originally from a podcast. I don't even care what they're called. You can look it up if you're interested in finding it more. I don't want to even give their name a shout out. They're scum. This girl is talking about 12-year-olds having sex with a 40-year-old. That's the context of this clip. She's saying that if their community is okay with it, then it's okay. This girl is deranged out of her mind. Absolutely terrible. And yeah, she just constantly runs her mouth. That's what she does. She's like, oh, since you want to bring my name up again, you forgot to add the recipient of the 2023 Polaris Star Award for serving the minor survivors of Twitter. Man, she is the worst. She is so full of herself and just desperate for attention. So that's what she's in this for, attention, very clearly. But we're not going to waste any more time on Eliza Bleu. We're going to dig today into The Sound of Freedom and Tim Ballard. And Tim, I don't think he's as desperate for attention necessarily, but I don't think he's a good guy. Now, I will say, I think Vigilant Citizen, I love Vigilant Citizen. He's got a lot of great stuff. I think he makes a great point that the media's response to this film has been quite unhinged. There's been a lot of attacks on the film that I don't think are legitimate reasons to attack the film. It's more about, hey, this is conspiracy theory nonsense. Child human trafficking is not a big issue, and it's just conservative conspiracy theory to treat child human trafficking like it's actually something that matters. And some of the media has even gone as far as to have literal pedophiles like Noah Berlatsky, people who defend pedophilia. That's what this guy spends his time doing, or defending pedophiles. Yeah, I'm like, so a number of major publications, including the Washington Post, had this guy write articles to try to attack the film. I don't think that's a legitimate reason to attack the film. But I think that when you look at Tim Ballard and his organization in particular, yeah, they're very sketchy. But the topic at hand is very real. We should all care about this issue and want to fight it. I would just say that Operation Underground Railroad is not the best organization for that. So this is a clip that Lynn Packer put in one of his videos. Lynn Packer has been researching Operation Underground Railroad for years. He's got at least 30 long-form videos talking about this organization and Tim Ballard and digging into the discrepancies in their stories. And so let's watch this little clip here.
So they had to cut it. It hurt, but it was his fault. He
Way to go, Eduardo.
I told him, you know what?
In fact, the movie was cut because it was too long. And remember we talked about they had cards at the end telling you every bad guy's real.
Every bad guy is real. Every kid is real.
Every kid is real, and it told you where they are today. Wow. So they just.
That's the part of the clip that I wanted to show you. So this guy has been asked repeatedly, how true is the story of this film? And he's always saying it's extremely true. What he said just there, every kid and a bad guy is real. And this is completely false. And we can verify that this is false. So this is a laughable claim. I think he's also said that the film is about 85% true. Total nonsense. This film is not at all true. So the film is largely based around this story. This is Operation Underground Railroad's website where you can buy this necklace, and it says right here, from the original necklace given to Tim. So Tim has repeated this story that he rescued this little boy and from this horrible abusive situation, and that the little boy gave him a necklace, and that necklace had 1 Timothy 6:11 on it, and the little boy asked Tim to save his sister, who was also kidnapped. And then Tim, according to Tim, his own child saw this necklace and was asking him about it. And it's like, why is your name on the necklace, Daddy? And he says that this whole experience inspired him to start Operation Underground Railroad and leave his government job and to go save this little girl, is essentially how the story goes. And so that's what the film is about. And it's bullshit. It's not true. This didn't happen. And in fact, it was 7 years between when there was a little boy that was rescued and Tim was involved in that operation. But it was 7 years between then and when he left his government job and got into Operation Underground Railroad operations. So the film presents this as happening much faster. He wants to immediately go off and save this little girl in need of help. But this is just completely untrue. This didn't happen. The little girl was not kidnapped at all. The boy's sister was not kidnapped at all. And if it was true, then Tim waited 7 years and let this girl be, stay in this horrible situation that she was in for 7 years before doing anything about it. So Lynn Packer has really done a fantastic job. I would highly suggest looking at his content if you're interested in learning more about OUR and some of the lies of Tim Ballard. His report number 20 is the one that goes in particular into the origin story of the organization, this necklace story, and how false it is. We're going to go over some of this pretty quick. I'm just going to point out the things that are most interesting to me with showing corruption in this organization. This was a picture of a whiteboard from a meeting where Tim laid out his master plan to have all these different organizations and try to make a bunch of money with them. And how they were going to move the money around, and they wanted to raise funds for the LDS Church, according to this. So yeah, supposedly they had this secret meeting, and one of the people at the meeting took a picture of this whiteboard. So you can look more into that if you're interested. There have been criminal investigations into this organization, but they seem purposely botched. For example, the federal auditor, that was supposed to be assigned to this organization to look at the finances, was a completely untrained individual who had never done not even criminal auditing. They hadn't even done any auditing. And so that's who the feds put on this case. Very weird. Again, I believe it's actually this report that I had brought up here, number 29, where Lynn Packard digs into that issue in particular. So really, less time I'll say it, but this is the best guy to dig more into this if you're interested. So Tim recently left Operation Underground Railroad right as this film was released. Vice has an article suggesting that it was actually due to internal investigations into Tim Ballard from other members of the organization, questioning some of his misconduct. But we don't know for sure why Tim Ballard left this organization, but he also left, there's a second organization that he left at the same time, so he played a key role in both of these, left them both right as this film is coming out. Kind of odd timing, but he has got involved in this new organization called the Spear Fund, evidently. So some odd timing for these moves, considering the film has just come out. So now let's look a little bit at financing for the film. If this clip wants to load for me. Who cares? In this clip, Tim Ballard essentially says that one of the key funders for the project was a man named Carlos Slim. So Carlos Slim, here he is pictured with Eduardo Verástegui, and this is another important figure in all of this. He actually plays a role in the film. He's a Mexican actor, and he's interested in getting into politics as well. Carlos Slim, who helped fund the film, one of the richest men in the world, and seems to be a sketchy fellow. This is an article that just talking about the friendship between Eduardo and Carlos a little bit. This is an article talking about Carlos Slim, though, suggesting that he is linked to the drug cartels. There was a WikiLeaks article that came out that where a DEA agent suggests that Carlos Slim is tied to the cartels, which seems like almost obvious, I would say. So Operation Underground Railroad has supposedly done all this work to help kids, and for the film, although Tim said that every child is real, every bad guy is real, they actually combined two stories along with a bunch of bullshit lies, of course. But they combined the initial story of this little boy and his supposed sister who had been supposedly kidnapped, which isn't true. They combined that story with the story of Gardy Marty, who was a missing Haitian boy that they went in to try to rescue from the jungle. So in the film, it's Tim and his team going in to rescue the little girl. In reality, it was a little boy. In the film, Tim goes in and kills the head of this organization and saves this little girl. In reality, they didn't save anyone. And they actually brought in a psychic, which I thought was pretty funny. Here's some people who are reporting. This is Vice reporting, and I do think Vice is a rag. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I absolutely have to admit Anna Merlin has done a lot of good reporting on Operation Underground Railroad as well as Lynn Packer. And so, yeah, she got this quote. Tim shows up with this woman, this very sheltered-looking soccer mom-ish woman from Utah, one source told Vice World News, and he's being very defensive and won't let anyone talk to her. After a couple days, I figured out she's a fucking psychic. That's his fucking source. A second person on the mission said that they too had just been introduced to the psychic. Both people remembered her name was Janet. So Janet, declines to comment because she had signed an NDA. But yeah, so that's the kind of work that they're doing to track down children. They're bringing in psychics and whatnot. Total nonsense. So more on funding issues. So this is a quote from Tim Ballard from 2019. He says, "When I originally founded Operation Underground Railroad, it was always my goal to become a volunteer and not to take any donor dollars for myself." Any donor dollars. How much money do you think that Tim Ballard made from Operation Underground Railroad last year? Well, this is public information. You can't have a charitable organization and not have this info be public. So he made $526,000 as the CEO last year. That's a lot more than not taking any donor dollars. I think that's an absurd amount of money for charity executives to be making. It's not uncommon necessarily. There are plenty of overpaid charity execs, but yeah, I think that's really sick in of itself. But given that he said he didn't want to take any money, this guy's a maniac. So there's this company, VidAngel, and they're a shady company as well. They claim to be this. They said that they were trying to make films more watchable for families by removing nudity and graphic content and language. And so they were essentially hacking apart films made by Hollywood studios and redistributing them to be more family friendly. Essentially making millions and millions of dollars off of the work of these studios. So the studios, of course, sued them for this, and they were ordered to pay $62 million to the studios for damages, and that was eventually reduced to $9.9 million after the company did a bunch of shady stuff to try to get out of paying for it, like filing for bankruptcy, the types of things that companies always do to get out of paying the money that they owe. So this is a very sketchy company, and this is the company that turned into Angel Studios. They rebranded because, of course, you don't want everyone to know about your criminal past, so companies will rebrand when they get in lots of trouble. It's very common. And this is the company that released Sound of Freedom. They also work on The Chosen, which is the big biblical show that's maybe still ongoing. I think it's still ongoing. It says season 4 in production. I haven't paid too much attention to that show. But so this is the company that's released the film. It's made by the Harmon brothers. This is not the same Dan Harmon as the Rick and Morty Dan Harmon. These are different people. These are a bunch of Mormon brothers. Tim Ballard is also Mormon. You'll see why that's relevant. But I like to look at do people have satanic connections? Are these people tied to secret societies? That's one of the first things I look at when I'm trying to see what's going on with certain individuals. And I found a bunch of pretty bad content talking about some of this type of stuff. Lots of these little TikTok videos, stuff like this, suggesting that this tie where he was wearing in this image was a Masonic tie. Honestly, I could not find an image that was a version of this image of Tim that was large enough to like properly zoom in and verify if the tie that he's wearing is the one that they think it is. People are suggesting this is the tie he was wearing. It's got the Masonic square and compass with the Gnostic G in the middle. He might be wearing that tie, but we can't tell for sure because we can't get a proper view of the tie. It's too grainy if you zoom in on it. And I am of the opinion that when you're talking about corruption and conspiracy, there's absolutely no need to use questionable material to make your point because there's so much good material out there. So I don't think this is particularly convincing. Yeah, another crappy TikTok video here. And a lot of people are connecting, trying to suggest that Tim Ballard is trying to push microchipping children. And there's a quote even going around that this guy on Godlike Production forums, he's asking, hey, can anyone verify this quote? Because I can't find it anywhere. And it's Tim supposedly saying, get your kids chipped now. And yeah, there's no, I can't find any video or any article where he says anything like this. There is a creepy organization called My Chip. It's this Masonic program to put microchips in children. That is a real thing. It is really sketchy, but I've seen no legitimate connection to Tim Ballard and Operation Railroad trying to push this. So Tim's actually commented on this claim.
The godless leftist media will go to run interference for human traffickers. They're throwing everything at me right now. I just saw a post that seems to be trending in certain places saying that I am in favor of putting microchips in children so we can track them. It's complete baloney. I've never weighed in on that. I've never said anything. In fact, I'm very much against anything that would allow the government or others to control children. I just found out yesterday that I'm also apparently involved in trafficking. I run trafficking networks, or that I'm some Mason involved in strange Masonic practices.
All right. So is there anything connecting this guy to secret societies? This is an interesting clip. It's from the LDS Church, which again, he is a Mormon, and he is the first person talking in this clip here.
A lot of the things that Masons do are things that are very familiar to Latter-day Saints who participate in temple worship. And the question we have to ask is, why did this group, first of all, why did they possess them? And that's a mystery. There's a lot of theory behind it. A lot of people believe that these symbols and signs of Masonry were preserved through the days of the ancient Israelites and Solomon's temple, and that Jesus Christ himself taught these principles in mortality, and that they were things that were given to the apostles. And that somehow this group of what we call the Masons, perhaps through a Templar connection, perhaps through another way, through the apostasy, they preserved these signs and symbols.
When we speak of
Very much pushing Masonic bullshit right there. That's exactly what the Masons will say, that they have carried the secrets of the universe throughout history, that they know what's really going on, and that nobody else has had the true secrets that they have. And yeah, so it's interesting to see him pushing that. Mormons are particularly susceptible to Masonic lies because Mormonism itself was created by the Masons. Joseph Smith was a Mason. Brigham Young, the second leader, was also a Mason. Joseph Smith's family was full of Masons. There's all sorts of Masonic symbolism and ritual built into Mormonism. It's been in there from the beginning. And there are plenty of Mormons that know about this. There are Masonic Mormon history books kind of digging into this stuff. So it's much easier for Mormons to buy into these types of nonsensical ideas because it's built right into their religion. This is an article. Anonymous has put together a couple of threads looking at some weird connections with Tim Ballard. This guy seems to be into QAnon type stuff. So I can't say I dig everything he's got on here, but he has put together some interesting information. I want to point out a few things from it. So this is actually a couple people from The Chosen, which is another of Angel Studios projects. But the guy that they brought on to play John the Baptist, he made this like satanic film, and he has a quote here. He's saying, "Also surprising, our little satanic film trends more than Jesus this Easter." Very reminiscent of John Lennon saying, "Hey, we're more popular than Jesus." Pretty egomaniacally crazy thing to say. And he kind of down here below, he's trying to defend himself. He's like, "Hey everyone, I'm not a Satanist. Don't hate me. Please don't hate me for making my satanic film." And here's for his social media, he likes to use one eye symbolism. Kind of interesting. And then the guy that they brought on to play Jesus also seems like a bit of a weirdo. All sorts of skull symbolism with him. And he has this little clip.
Story, and we're just trying to find it.
Scully got a brother. Yeah, that's his brother.
Oh, I'm
A
sorry.
mantle and a cross with a little crown on it. A knight's cross. 5 years ago, I was knighted by the order, the Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem. I lost my mind there for a second. Essentially, the Knights Templar, which is what that is.
God
So this is my favorite section of this article. Everybody's a Knights Templar. And yeah, pretty interesting people to bring on for your Christian film. The Knights Templar, if you don't know, they were burned at the stake. Their order was dismantled. The leaders were killed because it was a satanic cult. That's literally what happened. That's why the Knights Templar were disbanded. You can try to argue that they weren't really, that they were actually killed for other reasons, but the historical record shows like the reason that was given for why they were destroyed was because they were a satanic cult, literally. So I'm gonna skip over some other stuff here. He found this thing from the Templar Times. So now we have like modern groups that, say that, hey, we're like the new Knights Templar. And yeah, so this is one of those groups. And look, Tim Ballard joined up. So did Paul Hutchinson and Sean Reyes. All of these people, obviously, especially Tim Ballard, are connected with this film. Paul Hutchinson, this is his website, says, he's well known for his philanthropic and charity contributions. Anyone whose bio says that they're a philanthropist, you can typically assume they're probably a piece of shit. So this guy, executive producer for The Sound of Freedom, board member for FBI Citizens Academy, trained by CIA operatives. Yeah. But yeah, he's got this knighted Sir Paul Hutchinson by the Knights Templar in 2016. So yeah, he's got it right on his own personal website as well. So I see no reason to question that these guys were all made Knights Templar. So yes, Tim Ballard is in fact tied to creepy satanic secret societies. I'm gonna skip over a bit more here, and I want to show you this clip as the last thing I want to show from this article.
The generation of the founders, and George Washington and the founders made a covenant with God, and it is the reason why we were founded, why we were protected, and why Israel was established. Now, Timothy Ballard has the book out, The Covenant, and it is a theory that you're not going to get anyplace else. You're probably one of the very few, besides David Barton and me, that get teary-eyed talking about this stuff.
I get emotional. And then what happens? It's not over yet. George Washington comes out and takes his oath, raises his arm in the fashion of a covenant maker, and places his hand on the Bible, but not just on the Bible, but in the Bible. Where he placed his hand told the world and the nation that he understood the covenants of Israel, and that he understood this covenant had been imported by the founders into the United States of America.
Totally unhinged nonsense. So Tim Ballard also has a couple of books about this supposed covenant, how America is God's chosen country, and the Masonic founders were all had this secret knowledge that God had given to this creepy cult to protect throughout time, and now they built this nation up to carry out the covenant. Totally unhinged nonsense. So he's pushing this like ultra nationalist insanity. Here's a interesting painting that Operation Underground Railroad posted on their Facebook. This beautiful painting, titled The Underground Railroad by John McNaughton, features the abolitionists of yesterday and today, including Tim Ballard and his wife, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, here's all these historical figures, some even bowing and just in reverence and awe of Tim Ballard and his organization, Saving Children. Here we got Abraham Lincoln, we got Frederick Douglass. They're all just in so much awe of how great Tim Ballard is. This brought to mind for me another painting called The Apotheosis of George Washington. This is a painting, I believe it's in the Capitol building, where, you see George Washington up in the clouds. Apotheosis means essentially it's like they've been deified, they've turned from man into God. And so, that's what this painting is. And, this painting gives me similar vibes. Like Tim really has a high view of himself. And, it's interesting because all occultism is really largely about acceptance of the lie in the garden. It's the idea that man can become as gods. This is what these secret societies teach, that you can become a god. And that's exactly what Mormonism teaches as well. Mormonism teaches that you can become a god. So Tim Ballard clearly seems to believe that he is in the process of apotheosis, I would say. So ultimately, what's one of the biggest takeaways from all of this? I would say it's this. So Eduardo Verástegui, he is involved in this film as well. He actually plays a role in the film, and he looks like he's going to be running for president. That's right. So when we consider earlier on, we talked about, hey, Carlos Slim is helping fund this. Looks to me like Carlos Slim wants Eduardo Verástegui in power. That seems to me like probably one of the biggest things going on. These guys are making themselves look really good to a lot of people. Oh, these wonderful heroes are going out and fighting for children. No, they're making a lot of money and they're making themselves look good. But how much good are they actually doing? Questionable. it'd be awesome if you could just form a mercenary band and go out and head into the jungle and stop bad guys and save kids. But the world is not a Metal Gear Solid game. This is not reality. Tim Ballard and what he initially wanted to make a TV show, actually. With he and Glenn Beck were gonna team up and try to make a TV show where they would go in and rescue kids, a reality TV show of saving kids. But it's like, this is not how reality works. No country's gonna just let like an armed mercenary group come in and do whatever they want to take down the people that they say are bad guys. You know, this is unhinged fantasy territory. It like the world is not Metal Gear Solid. What it is for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. You know, sometimes I wish that we could just take up our swords and physically fight the evils that we're facing in this world, but that's not the type of battle that we're in. We're in a spiritual battle. We're in a battle where we have to fight with our minds, and we have to fight for truth and to expose truth and to reveal acts of wickedness to others. That's how we can largely fight against some of the greatest evils in the world. We often can't go in and physically fight these things. And Tim Ballard and people claiming that you can are unhinged maniacs. If you're interested in fighting against human trafficking, there are so many organizations that do this. There are so many better options than Operation Underground Railroad. This is one example that I've given money to this organization, not for sale. But there are plenty of organizations, and I would encourage you to give money or to give time to fighting against human trafficking. It is terrible. It is something that we should all stand against. But there are much better ways to do that than supporting Tim Ballard and his organizations. And yeah, that's it for the main topic of this video. Before I go, I want to mention one more thing. If you followed my work for any time, you've probably heard me mention that I want to write a book. And, you know, to be honest, I feel like that's something I'm never going to finish if I don't make it my top priority. And so I'm super excited to tell you that in September, I am going to be leaving my position with my company, and I am going to make my job writing my book. And I'm going to do that until the book is done or until it is no longer financially viable for me to do. I'm incredibly excited. The book is going to be focused on the impact of secret societies on history and the role that they played in the formation of the modern world, what they believe and why it matters. So I am super excited to get into this and make it my primary focus. Along with that, I'm going to start releasing videos on a regular schedule. I don't know exactly what that schedule is going to be yet. We'll figure that out once we're there. But in September, you're going to start seeing a lot more of me, and I can't wait. So thank you all for all your support over the years. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great day.